I'm Stephen Fulop, and I believe leadership is about standing up for what you believe in, even when it's not popular, and then fighting successfully to get it done. Now I'm running for governor to bring that same energy and fight to Trenton. In the coming months, I'll be offering detailed proposals for how we can make a great state even better for every family. I hope you're with me, because we have a lot to do.
All right. Can you all hear me okay? Some nods? All right, we got some thumbs up. So first, let me say thank you, and thanks for watching that introductory video. I figure I'll give you a little context on that as a starting point, and then we'll get into the substance here of what we're about to talk to tonight. I really want to appreciate and say thank you, first of all, for taking the time on this hot Monday night in the dead of summer to care about an election that is a year away, and how we are going to make New Jersey a better place. I launched this campaign about a year ago, and everybody said it was very early, and how would you stay relevant, and why were you doing it so early? The reason that I did it then, I was very clear that there were two reasons. First was to be very detailed on policy, more substantive than any other campaign. And then the second part was to organize volunteers in a way that was not relying on the typical political structure in New Jersey. So we started with the policy papers, and once a month over the last year, once every 6 weeks, we rolled out a different pillar of the campaign. We've done transportation, we've done affordable housing, we've done public safety, we've done healthcare, we've done education, and this is government reform. They're more detailed than any campaign, and that's intentional because we want to set out what we're clearly going to do. And sometimes people don't like what we write here. We get criticized in it publicly, privately. Sometimes it's replicated, like a lot of the initiatives that are coming from Trenton today that people are touting started with our policy papers and these conversations that we're talking about right now. Example, just today, there was an article on NJ.com about caps on universities, education, tuition caps, started with our policy paper. The CBT, or corporate business tax, to fund New Jersey Transit, that was passed 2 weeks ago in the state budget. That started with our transportation policy paper. So there's a lot of good that's already happening. And we recognize that if you're going to change New Jersey, you can't just be talking of platitudes. We have a lot of experience from our time in Jersey City over the last 10 plus years. And we have a clear vision on how we're going to make New Jersey a better place. Today is one that I'm sure there's a lot of different opinions, and most of this conversation is going to be from you. We'll talk briefly about what I've done in Jersey City, what I'm proud of, things that we need to change in Trenton that we'd prioritize. And then we're going to open up to conversation over the balance of the hour. And this is not a final document in the sense that we're not going to add to it. We have every intention to do that because the best ideas come from people like you. The second part of the campaign was organizing a grassroots effort that isn't reliant on the traditional political structure. We have a system in place that is very volunteer oriented, a very flat organization on a campaign structure, and it's working. I mean, we have 800 plus volunteers that have gone through the onboarding process, the PowerPoint and the Zoom, that are in our system, that are participating in some form. We have close to 25, 26 sitting mayors that have come out there publicly to be supportive, 25 or so former mayors, some big labor organizations publicly out there. And I want to highlight that before we get into this, because it really is a crazy thing. It's a crazy thing for me to ask somebody a year out, would you be supportive of a gubernatorial campaign that's an unformed field? I basically want you to come out and be engaged in the campaign because you know the work we've done in Jersey City, despite the fact that who knows who gets in this race. It's a crazier thing for them to say yes. And I'm very thankful that these people are engaging in the campaign that we've built and that we will continue to build to change New Jersey. This one in particular about strengthening our democracy and meaningful government reform is important in a way that impacts every single resident in a pure financial way. How your government delivers its resources to you, whether it's efficient, whether it's transparent, how it works for you impacts you every single day. New Jersey is an expensive place to live. There's a lot of reasons why it's an expensive place to live. But one of the primary reasons is the opaqueness of how Trenton operates, how people have monetized different positions there, who they prioritize, and how elections happen. And most of the time, the public doesn't even know that these things are happening. But if you're going to improve New Jersey, you need to be willing to speak to them and be willing to change them. And so that's what this one's about. And this is why it's relevant to people that care about the inner workings of politics and government. And it's also relevant to people that don't care as much because it does impact them financially. So I'm going to run through really quick the policy paper, and then we're going to open it up to questions. You could post your questions in chat, and Janie will call on you. Everybody could see what's posted there. So we're going to be very clear about that. We're not hiding anything. And we're going to do our best to get through as many of them as possible. All of these policy papers are structured the same way. One final point before we get into it. The first couple pages are, what have I done in Jersey City that's tangible on a specific topic? And the second part is what I would do in Trenton if I got there. I do want to say as a starting point also, once we're getting into this, so on page 3, before we talk about the changes that have happened in Jersey City, I want to remind people that Jersey City 11, 12 years ago was a very different place than it is today. Many of us have short-term memory, but 12 years ago, the largest corruption arrest in the history of New Jersey, bid ring with Solomon Dweck, was focused on Jersey City. Touched on the mayor's office at the time, touched on the city council, up to a council president at the time indicted. I think it was 35 people involved in Jersey City government. And one of the reasons that I was elected was to turn the page on that. And I think we largely have. We've run a very efficient and effective government over the last 10 plus years. You could come to Jersey City and you could see the change. The narrative of Jersey City has changed. I'm sure people are going to have questions and comments about this, but I'm happy to talk through that. So let's just really start really quick on some of the big things that I want to highlight, and then we're going to get into the things that I'm going to change, and then we're just going to open it right up into comments and questions or things that you think that I'm missing. On page 3, we start with the county line system, abolishing the county line. It's there, and it's a big conversation over the last 6 months. I want to highlight that prior to Bob Menendez getting indicted, prior to Andy Kim declaring that he was running for Senate, prior to the lawsuit that struck it down last year, I had a public endorsement from the Hudson County Democratic Organization, which is one of the most important lines in New Jersey. I also had the chairman of the Warren County Democratic Organization publicly endorsing me. I have or had a very, very good angle at numerous other county lines. And prior to all of that, I gave an interview and a public comment, and I said that if elected, I would change this, that the problem is how this structure works, that disenfranchises voters, and then if elected, I would change it. Now, everybody in the political system that the chair people, the people that reliant on it, I mean, I got phone calls for the next week and a half over how could I do that? Why would I say that? And the reality is because I thought it was the right thing. I pointed out because I said it in a position of having everything to lose at that point, because I had something tangible that was already there with regards to electoral turnout, but I knew it was the wrong thing, and I said it's the wrong thing. And I'm going to continue to be that person once elected. I'm very proud of that, where we are. So the first thing that you see there is prior to where we are today, I wasn't scared to say what I felt. And then along the way, we were involved. We filed an amicus brief with Andy Kim's campaign. We've been vocal on the structure issues, and I'm proud of that. And I think I have a track record on that. Moving on to page 4, it highlights some of the things that we've done in Jersey City. The model pay-to-play legislation that was gutted recently in the Transparency Act, but was the law of the land for 10 plus years. The model was Jersey City, implemented when I was a council person. Ranked choice voting, the ordinance that will implement Jersey City to engage directly when that happens, we've pushed and passed. Participatory budgeting, something that engages the public in a way we've done via the Arts Trust Fund and the Parks Trust Fund. And again, I touched earlier on restoring trust. We've done that in a lot of different ways, whether it's elimination of the tax abatements. When I got into office, tax abatements were by right. Every developer got one. We haven't done a tax abatement in 7+ years on market rate housing here in Jersey City. We totally changed the narrative. Open public records. There's been a lot of conversation around how Trenton has become more opaque and more difficult to get access to information. Jersey City complies with more public records than any municipality in New Jersey, close to 5,000 requests a year. And out of those 5,000, I think last year we had 5 that went to the State Records Council where there was a dispute over what the law entitles somebody to. So I'd put our record there, while not perfect, against anybody in the state of New Jersey. We have a record on eliminating redundant services. There's always the talk in Trenton about eliminating duplicative services, to combining different functions. Jersey City, we have a track record of doing that. We've eliminated autonomous agencies. We've combined different departments in a way that has really improved taxpayer efficiency. So that kind of is the starting point of some experiences around what we're talking about, pages 1 through 5. Getting to page 6, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the structure in New Jersey that needs to change. I'm going to talk a little bit about conflicts of interest reform. New Jersey has a unique structure where you have a very few number of people, less than 5, that get in a room historically and they decide who is the governor, who's the speaker, who's the Senate president. And the reason that they can do that, these county chair people, is because they have disproportionate influence on who drives or who is on the ballot on the county line, on the assembly line, on the local level. They solely decide who gets the better ballot placement that gives a disproportionate outcome. You would be hard-pressed to find challengers losing in New Jersey because of the way that the ballot has historically been structured, and you have a very few number of people, like I said, less than 5, that have not only controlled that, but they have monetized that. I put some pictures here, but I'm not reluctant to say it. I mean, you have in New Jersey a state chairman that operates as a lobbyist, a contract lobbyist. In most other states, that would not be permitted. You have the most influential county person that became a lobbyist after becoming a county chairperson and deciding who the assembly people are and who the senators are. And that type of influence drives their business. That conflict of interest is a tax on residents every single day. And you need to be honest about that. And if you're going to change that, you need to operate in a way that conflicts of interest are checked, and they cannot operate like that. If you take a step back and you say that you have a chairperson of a county, for example, that is taking money on behalf of a voucher organization, let's say Choose New Jersey, and at the same time operating as a Democratic chairperson, or you have a county chairperson that's operating and taking money in their lobbyist position on behalf of the Associated Business Contractors, which is the largest advocate for non-union contracting in the country. Those are conflicting with core democratic values or what they espouse publicly. So it leads you to the conclusion they are either lying to their client or they are lying to their constituency, because those two things cannot coexist. And my point on this is that conflicts of interest should be checked, and there should be some basic conflict of interest requirements in non-elected positions that control ballot outcomes that exist in other states. So that's page number 6. When you get to page number 7, we talk a little bit about Election Transparency Act. We talk a little bit about the pay-to-play laws. We talk a little bit about the look-back time period that is now entitled to ELEC, the money that was guaranteed or committed at the time to help ELEC, and how that has changed from what was committed to actually done. If you are going to have an accountability around elected officials, this law needs to be changed. And you need a governor who's willing to lean into it and make people accountable for that. And we're putting it here in plain black and white because we are committed to doing that. I know a lot of elected people may not like me saying it, but it is the right thing to do. And deep down, they know it's the right thing to do as well. When you get to page 8, we talk a little bit about financial disclosure forms. Again, you should have access as the public to clear information on where and how people are making money. These brackets have not been updated in more than a decade plus, maybe 2 decades, on how and what people make money outside of their elected official position. So the highest bracket, being greater than $50,000, is not as relevant today. It should be similar to what you see in Congress or at other states, where there's more clarity around, is somebody making meaningful dollars on this outside interest, and no conflicts of interest exist as related to that. And those are information that should be updated. Governor Murphy spoke about this at one point, I believe. He didn't follow through on it. I think that it's necessary to do. Moving on to page 9. We talk about legislative transparency and municipal elections, something I have a good deal of experience on. I am a believer. I know everybody may not agree on this, but the elections in November, whether it be municipal or Board of Education elections, create better outcomes with regards to people's awareness, people's willingness to vote. People know that the elections happen at that time. And it's also cost effective from a government standpoint not to be doing so many elections throughout the year. We would encourage this as well. And I'm going to put it out there. It's something that I view as a priority. Moving on to page 10. I want to talk about some changes to the election that are common sense. I mentioned earlier that I surrounded myself with a very flat organization on this campaign structure. It's very lean, very flat, not a lot of consultants, and a lot of people that I have a lot of personal respect for. Our chief counsel happens to be one of the best lawyers in New Jersey with regards to election law. And I just want to turn it over to him for a second to talk about some of these common sense changes that we're going to advocate once elected regarding elections in New Jersey. So Scott Salmon, do you want to be permissioned? All right, there you are, Scott. Unmuted. Introduce yourself if you can and run through this.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, according to one prominent candidate for governor, I am one of the best election lawyers in New Jersey. Only on that subject, though. Don't ask me about anything else. No, I'm as the mayor said, I'm the chief counsel for the campaign, and this is a section that I obviously helped out with. So is you can go through yourself, but the most of the items here that we are discussing are geared towards one of two things: either standardization or transparency. Instead of having 21 different counties do their own different things and having 21 different, really more than 21 different ballots, but 21 different systems to do it, we want to sort of centralize the election management, centralize how candidate petitions can be viewed and challenged. We want to centralize centralize things like ballot initiatives, referenda. Not everyone knows this, but not every town or village or borough in New Jersey is entitled to use ballot initiatives or referenda. It's actually only about a third of them they're able to do that. This is one of the things we want to do here is standardize all these sorts of different processes throughout the entire state.
Yeah, I want to add one thing, Scott, on that it is very difficult in New Jersey to bring an initiative or a referendum. And you want to basically land as a state, in my view. You don't want to have it where it's California that every single election there are multiple ballot questions. I don't think that's productive either. But I think in the New Jersey system where it's impossible to bring something forward is also not the best outcome. So I think you do need to find some middle ground and advocate for that. That's in your best interest as a voter and as a resident. And the other thing I just want to highlight that you went through pretty quickly is remove the human bias in ballot drawings. I mean, you could read it here. There's no reason to allow ballot draws to continue to have human interference when randomization software already exists. I mean, we are in a world today where the clerk still convenes a small group of people and pulls a ball or a number out of a hat and decides who is where. Now, I'm going to tell you that after the lawsuit prior to the primary that eliminated the county lines, it formed a block voting structure that is similar to every other state. So basically that means that instead of having a line, you have the people running for Congress, the people running for Senate, the people running for Assembly in an individual office, all randomized, and there's nobody that has a clear advantage. That was the big change. Every other state does it like that, and it's in your best interest. Now, I'm going to point out that Essex County, okay, with the randomization, every one of their choice endorsed candidates received the top spot still across the top. Statistically speaking, that is like less than 1% chance of happening, right? And the reason for that probably is because you have this system that is archaic, where an individual basically decides what that ballot looks like. There is no reason with today's technology that we still operate in that way. And we would change that because it's just kind of common sense. So I just didn't want to fly through those, Scott. So
no, that's exactly right. And that was so my next point was going to be about updating technology, modernizing ourselves towards modern technology. Most of our election code was literally written in the 1800s. It's technically, if you look at the election codes, it talks about stringing ballots out on a physical string. So it's just massively out of date and desperately needs to be updated. The example of the ballot drawing is a perfect example. There's no reason to be sticking your hand into a box or whatever and pulling them out when every single municipality, including the state, has the technology already to do truly randomized drawings. And then the next example of that is same-day voter registration. That's something that was primarily not allowed. We were unable to do before because they relied on physical paper poll books that they needed to distribute throughout the state to make sure that people didn't try and vote in multiple places. Now everything is completely digital. If you voted anytime in the last 2 years, you would have signed it on on basically an iPad that updates the voter registration system as you're doing it. And so there's no reason that we can't update our system to use that modern technology now to allow for things like that. Back to you, Mayor.
All right, I appreciate that. I mentioned earlier about the importance of ranked choice voting, and if you're going to change elections in New Jersey, and I said earlier, why is that relevant for you? Because the fair and more open elections ultimately entices the better candidates to run and more candidates to run, more choice for you as a resident, and hopefully that's more, or I should say better outcomes as a representative. More choices probably lead to better options, more debate around policy, better outcomes for you. The natural progression of this is talking about ranked choice voting. We enacted a trigger ordinance in Jersey City. Senator Zwicker proposed legislation down in Trenton. I'm going to turn this over to Jack Cunningham. He's one of the leaders in the state conversation around ranked choice voting, because I want him to explain a little bit about the importance of ranked choice voting on the election process and why you should care about it. So, Jack, you there?
Yeah.
We find Jack?
Yeah, he's there. Just we need to unmute him.
All right. All right, we'll get back.
There he is.
Oh, Jack, I was just about to pass over you.
No issue. Hi, everybody. My name is Jack. I am a volunteer for Voter Choice New Jersey, and I'm joining you from Jersey City, actually. Ranked choice voting is the process by which, instead of voting for just one candidate, you're able to rank them in order of your preference. So let's say there's a candidate who you really like, who resonates with you from your community. You can say, I like this person first. But that doesn't mean you feel equally about all the other options. You can say, well, that candidate from my community strongly encouraged me to endorse this candidate second or this candidate third, because they're also going to have really good policies for my community. So I will rank those candidates second and third. And the rest of the candidates I don't like. I'm going to just leave them off my ballot. We see in places that adopt this gives voters more choices and makes elections more fair. We see more policy-oriented discussions, and we're able to eliminate low turnout, incredibly expensive run-ups.
All right, Jack, that was pretty good. We may have some questions in a little bit about that, so we'll come back to you shortly. All right?
Sure, yeah.
All right, so before we open it up to comments and questions, page 12 talks a little bit about the state budget process. The way it works now, as you saw firsthand, those of you who followed it 2 weeks ago, budget is introduced 48 hours maybe before it is passed. Very few people have an option to see it. Billions of dollars in pork. Why is New Jersey such an expensive place to live? Largely our tax structure, affordability around housing. We touched on that in some of the other stuff, but also the budget process has a lot to bear of that responsibility. You have, and the Republicans point this out regularly, and they're not wrong on it, to be honest. They talk about the billions of dollars additional that are added in the last minute and what that does to your taxes and the impact that that has. That is a true thing. And we talk here about basic reforms, timeline and when it would be introduced, how long it needs to sit there before legislatively, before it can take action. So that way the sunlight is the best process for that. Municipal budgets, as those of you who follow it, go through a similar process. We don't have the luxury of introducing it and then passing it 24 or 48 hours. It's introduced, you go through public hearings where the public can see it. It is tweaked along in that process. And then sometimes months later, it is passed. And I know in Jersey City, we're passing our municipal budget, I think, on Wednesday, actually. to give you perspective on how this process works over a couple different months. Talk a little about term limits. I'm not going to belabor that point. I'm sure there's 125 people on this. Probably half have one view and half have another view. I think it is a healthy thing to force changeover. And absent legislation that forces it, people are usually reluctant to voluntarily walk away. And I think legislation is healthy on this front to do, and allowing municipalities, which doesn't exist today, to also enact term limits would be a good thing for everybody. It's another place that some of the Republican candidates for governor have supported publicly, and we're aligned on that. I don't know if every Democrat has said it. I don't think so, but I do believe this is a healthy thing. And then the last page, we talked a little bit about open public records and changing that back to a fee shifting structure where there is a necessary component of municipalities to comply. It was gutted about a month ago. It moved New Jersey backwards. Some of you may have followed that. It is not something for Trenton to be proud of. And ultimately, the hope is that we will be able to move that back in an area that makes it more accountable to the public. So that's broadly. And now the best part of this is conversation. What am I missing? What should we add? What do you not like? What do you think need to change, can do better? And I'll turn it over to Janie on this.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. So for our first question, we're going to go to Linda. Linda, I asked you, I'm sending you a request to unmute.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I was a big supporter in Jersey City of the trigger ordinance for ranked choice voting, and I'm curious, as governor, what you would do to encourage passing legislation for ranked choice voting in New Jersey.
Look, I think that one of the things where I think that the governor could be better at is I think he could be more forceful and stronger using his bully pulpit in the position as governor. And I think he would use a lot of different examples legislatively over the last 6+ years where I would view that as an example where I don't feel like we go quite strong enough or hard enough or far enough, and the governor doesn't vocalize that. I think those who know me in Jersey City, I'm not shy, I'm not meek. I lean into issues that I do care about. And one of the reasons that I outline these things in a very clear and transparent way is that when I get there, I intend on following through on those. And those people that don't like them, I'm going to tell you, I told you so. There should be no surprises here. I told you that this is what I intend on doing if you elect me, and I'm going to follow through on it. So I think my personality and what I care about is one that will follow through and really shine a light on the importance of this and push for it.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Our next question is from Lewis. So Lewis, go ahead and unmute. I'm going to ask the question for you because Lewis is feeling a bit under the weather. So I'll ask your question and then you can comment. So Lewis's question is, I invited a friend to attend this in hopes that you would alleviate his cynical views of politics and politicians, but unfortunately he declined. Cynicism is laziness, in my humble opinion, but what would you say to him to try to break through such negative thinking?
Look, two things. I think that number one is, I think we got a strong track record in Jersey City of effectiveness in following through. Number one, nobody's perfect. I think number two is, Lewis, I think a lot of the campaign is going to rely on people like you being validators along the way. The reason we started early is building a grassroots organization that will help us communicate to people that it's a different type of campaign and a different type of administration we're looking to run. And I'm not necessarily the best messenger for that because of that cynicism. So engaging people like you and working together on changing your friend's view is the way that that's ultimately going to happen.
All right. Thanks, Lewis. Our next question is from Brian Everett.
Hi, Mayor Fulop. Thanks for holding town hall. I'm a big fan of everything I've heard so far tonight. But I wanted to ask a question because after this call this evening, I'm going to my town council's meeting where tonight they're going to vote on selling our sewer utility to New Jersey American Water, even though our town's mayor is director of government affairs for New Jersey American Water. So I was wondering what you might be able to do as governor to sort of strengthen ethics and those sorts of rules where something like this wouldn't happen so often.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a good question. And I don't know, Brian, the engagement or what he's recused himself, what he has not recused himself from, what the process was to get to the point where they're looking to partner with somebody that the mayor or council person has a relationship with. So it's hard to opine directly on that. Look, I think New Jersey and the AG, to be honest with you, this particular attorney general has done a good job and not reluctant to lean in on issues where he feels that there's an ethical breach. And so I would say that you have a person in that position today. It's not always the case, but that is sympathetic to listening to people that are concerned about government accountability. I think that you should look to reach out to him if you think that there is a valid issue. And I would tell you that we would position somebody in a similar mold into the AG's position that is willing to be autonomous and be aggressive, similar to what you have here today in our administration. It's a good character trait. And if you feel that there's a breach there, I think you should reach out to him without me knowing all the specifics on that.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Our next question comes from Ian Gonzalez.
Hey, Ian.
Hey, Mayor. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm sure you heard that the state budget reform was in the news today. I just wanted to know, how would you tackle this?
I did. I actually commented on it. It was picked up, I think, in the New Jersey Monitor. It wasn't picked up on NJ.com. Look, the budget process was in the paper because Steve Sweeney proposed today his first policy initiative, which is reform around multi-year budgeting. So essentially, New Jersey Policy Perspective, which is a think tank, also has advocated for multi-year budgeting and relinquishing some of the authority that the governor has around projecting revenues into kind of this shared model with the legislature. So that way you get more accurate projections and you could do things over multiple years. That's good. I mean, I'm good. If somebody has a good idea, I'm going to say it's a good idea. It's a good thing. What I did say also was that if you don't change the transparency component and change the timelines of introduction, you're going to get just a bad budget for multiple years. The process inherently is the problem with regards to the opaqueness that it's introduced with all that pork and then it's voted on 48 hours. You need some reform around that in order to make it work for you. So the multi-year budget is a good thing coupled with transparency. The transparency part is almost more important.
Oh, that's actually really interesting. I kind of like the fact that you that you still say that, yeah, there's some parts that are great, but it can improve.
I was just saying, over this whole policy stuff that we're doing for the last year, when I think Governor Murphy does something good, I'll be the first one to say it. I mean, I think, okay, this is a good initiative. I'm going to build on that. When he does something that I don't think does far enough on, I would say, look, I think that was fairly weak. I think this is what we need to do a little bit better, and I'm going to try to do better. And look, the multi-year thing that Sweeney said today is good. It's good.
Thank you so much for answering, Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Our next question is from Kaya Patel.
Hey, how are you?
Are you out there? Kaya? Nope. Okay, we'll come back to you then. Okay, I'm going to call on Joanne's iPhone for the next question.
Joanne's iPhone. Perfect.
Good evening. So my question has to do with the state police department. Recently, there was an analysis in the news that efforts to reduce discrimination in the police New Jersey State Police Department have been largely unsuccessful, and that the discrimination, for example, in traffic stops still continues, and that it goes up to the highest level in the state police department. So my question is what you would do to affect real change in the New Jersey State Police.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a good question. And one thing that I often point to people about this campaign is that being a mayor is different than being a legislator in that there is direct responsibility and direct accountability. So a starting point is that I deal with a police department here in Jersey City. When I came in, I want to give you a little perspective on that and how we've changed it, which I think is really, really important. We had 769 officers, and it was predominantly Caucasian, okay? And that was the Jersey City Police Department. We were very, very deliberate in changing the structure and the culture and make it better reflect the community. Today, the department stands at 900 to 950, depending on retirement. So we hired a substantial amount, invested a lot, and today it reflects the community. It's overwhelming minority. We did that by deliberately recruiting in different communities so that it better reflects the city. The second thing we did was change the whole model on supervision. We have totally revamped how we supervise, where they supervise, what type of accountability tools. And so you have different officers and different types of officers that better reflect the community with better oversight. Third, I think we've been very, very far and fair on discipline. I've probably terminated more police officers than anybody in the state of New Jersey currently there. We've also been very good about promotions. I think while they don't love everything that I do, I think at the end of the day, they would say that we've treated them fairly from a cultural standpoint with regards to accountability. So I would tell you that I'm not in the weeds today on all the issues on the state police. What I can tell you is I have a track record with regards to improving public safety and making it better serve the public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. Our next question comes from Ryan Spain.
What's up, Ryan?
Hey, good evening, Mayor. First and foremost, just want to thank you for your leadership on some of the bigger issues, like abolishing the line or coming out against the Oprah bill. Frankly, I don't know why more statewide Democrats aren't corralling around these issues. Probably speaks.
I can tell you why. I think they inherently know, Ryan, what's right and what's wrong. I think everybody does. I think that the structure that I told you on the first page with regards to how people get their elected positions, that historically they're just anointed because of the line system. They're incentivized not to speak out against it. So people know, they whisper to me all the time. I can't tell you how many people have told me that they want to be involved in the campaign, but they're scared. And I'm scared. I said, scared of what? Like, what's scared of what? Right? These are grown men telling me that they're scared of a chairman or somebody saying something. It's silly. But anyway, go ahead. Like, that's the culture. They know what's right and wrong. We all do.
Yes. If anything, just all the more reason to thank you for your leadership there. But my question has to do with New Jersey's pay-to-play policies and our campaign finance laws. I'm trying to understand them a little better. So I know you broached it already, but if you can just elaborate on what state they're in today and what your plans are to help improve that.
Yeah. So the model pay-to-play ordinance, which was the citizens campaign, we enacted in Jersey City via a referendum. The administration at the time fought me on it. We went out, got signatures. There was a process in the municipal election to do something similar. It's not very easy to do. That's why I touched on it earlier to reform it. And that became the de facto standard with regard for New Jersey with regards to pay-to-play laws. It eliminated contributions almost at every level. Now, when you raise a lot of money, it is difficult to comply with because it also created hurdles with regards to family members. People may not know that somebody donated. If you have thousands of donations, there's a huge compliance component of it. So that was the pushback of it. And there certainly were issues of it. There were times even where I had to return money because I didn't realize something, and we'd go through this process on it, etc. Today, it's been gutted to the point where it doesn't really exist anymore. There is no local pay to play of any sort. And there's got to be some middle ground between what we had prior, which was very, very difficult, and what exists today, which is virtually nothing. I generally feel that closer to what we had before is probably the right place to do, with some uniform standards from the state. So they've created uniform standards, which is a good thing, but a watered down model of that. I think uniform standards that were municipality to municipality across the board would have been a good thing, in my personal view.
Interesting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next question is from Sean Rafferty.
Hey, Sean.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you again. I'm really impressed by the platform. I think it'll do a lot of good for government reform. But I'm interested, you commented earlier on the power of the bully pulpit, but considering some of these measures might need constitutional amendments, others legislative majorities with some entrenched politicians who it might not be in their interest to get these measures passed. Are you considering any measures like state constitutional convention, referenda, if you get that initiative passed? What kind of out-of-the-box measures are you considering to really get this through?
I think reluctant to do, but not unwilling, where we can, executive orders to eliminate certain things, like some of the conflicts of interest. We could do that with or without help. I think that where possible, constitutional conventions, I think, needs to be a real conversation in the next 4 years, because not only around good government initiatives, but I think around taxes. If you're going to really be reforming New Jersey and the affordability conversation, have a real conversation around what taxes look like in New Jersey, and it hasn't happened at constitutional convention since the 1950s, I think, you really need to lean into sort of this stuff. So for me, the reason I outline some of this stuff is to be clear with the public, and also to set out a blueprint of these are the things I'm going to care about, and I'm going to lean into those once selected. Like, that's the plan, right? And that's kind of where we are. So I would fully anticipate using every lever that we have to move as many of these, if not all of them, forward.
All right.
I think we'll do like one or two more. If that's all right.
Sure. We have one from Avery.
Hi, Mayor. How are you?
Good, Avery.
Good, Avery.
Is Avery muted? Let's see it.
Sorry about that. And I apologize for my camera. It's not working for some reason. But anyway, so I'm more familiar with like federal lobbying laws and federal lobbying restrictions, and there's only two real restrictions that you need to abide by. You have to have 20% of your time that is dedicated to lobbying, and then you also have to have like 3 contacts in government in order to be registered with the Lobbying Disclosure Act federally. So like my question is, does New Jersey have a similar sort of barometer, I guess? And like, if so, can we enforce a stricter and more clearer kind of set of standards?
Let me say that we have standards. They're very, very loose. You have a lot of people operating as, let's say, public relations consultants that operate as quasi-lobbyists in New Jersey with huge amount of influence. You have people working at lobbying firms in leadership that are not registered lobbyists, that are interacting or influencing political outcomes in a huge and meaningful way. So part of the thing that we want to touch on is cleaning that up. And look, New Jersey, because of the way that we're situated between the New York and Philly market, we don't have the scrutiny that we probably should have. And that's the reason why you have this sensationalism of gold bars and alleged crime families operating and controlling development, all that stuff that you've read about in the last 3, 4, 5 months that seems to be commonplace in New Jersey. It's because of that scrutiny, but some of the scrutiny you could clean up by putting more accountability that you would say are common sense. So we're going to lean into that. That's why it's there. I'm probably not making any friends by saying this stuff, but I think that the reality is that you would recognize that it's the right thing to do.
Great, thank you. Mayor, if you don't mind, we have two more and then we'll close it from there.
Okay.
Our next one is Dan Lane.
Hi, Governor. Sorry, Mayor. A little slip there. I was wondering your thoughts on reforms that aren't related to election transparency and reform, which most of the stuff that we talked about today was, which I think is really great. But I was wondering what your thoughts are on other things that we could do to just make the government more streamlined and effective for the people. One among those, in my mind, at least, being municipal consolidation.
Yeah. So in the municipal consolidation conversation, it's going to be in the tax conversation and affordability conversation, which I think is either the next one or the following one. Sustainability and taxes are what's left. I would tell you, as the mayor of Jersey City, I have some experience with that. We've definitely done a lot of shared services with the Board of Education to cut costs. We've eliminated some of those autonomous agencies. We have shared agreements with everything from some garbage collection situations to animal control, and we've pushed that as an administration. We've also failed with regards to consolidation, for example, on the fire department, where we tried to consolidate with Hoboken, and the politics of that became very, very difficult from the unions pushing back, and we couldn't achieve that. So I learned a lot of lessons through that. I think on the consolidation part, if you can make New Jersey affordable, it needs to be not only a conversation, it needs to be encouraged. And the governor, whoever that is, needs to use not only his words, but the dollars and cents that are controlled by Trenton to encourage those outcomes ultimately. And we intend on doing that. I mean, I want to be a consequential and meaningful governor. It's the reason why I'm laying these stuff out. We're doing it to not only win an election, but to be meaningful in an administration. And like I said, I'm not making a lot of friends doing it the way I'm doing it. You've probably read that, but that's intentional. It's intentional because I think that's the only way that you're going to have the flexibility to change. And that consolidation is a big part of that.
All right, thank you. Our last question from Rowan Brown.
Good evening, Mayor. My question's about ranked choice voting. You said that as mayor of Jersey City, you supported the ranked choice voting ordinance there.
Yeah.
Would you encourage people to vote for their own ranked choice voting ordinances in other municipalities?
Yeah, the best thing to do is connect you with the group that had advocated for that statewide, and Senator Zwicker, who's terrific. And the short answer is yes. I do think that advocating for that creates more of a conversation around ranked choice voting, which ultimately leads to hopefully more pressure and a better outcome. Jack, who was here earlier and still is on the call, we could connect you to him, and he could give you the model trigger ordinance, and you could bring it to your respective city council. All right. Want to say one more time, thank you for taking the time. Before you guys sign off, okay, just one real quick thing here. Again, 100+ people on a Monday in the summer is no small thing, and I'm thankful, and people from across the state of New Jersey. The one thing that I would ask is we're not going to be successful in this campaign without people engaging directly beyond things like this. And I'm not talking about monetarily or contributions. I'm talking about really volunteering to be a part of the team, and whether it is 1 minute over the next 5 months or a weekend of canvassing down the road when we need it. We're not at that stage yet. Volunteering and being part of the system goes a long way to allowing us to implement a lot of the things that we discuss. You can do that by just going to stephenfulop.com and filling out that volunteer tab. I will respond to you personally. I do to everybody who signs up, because I appreciate people willing to sacrifice their time. I know it's the most valuable thing you have, but we can't do it without you doing that. If you're already part of the team there, I would urge you to please consider finding one other person to sign up. It really is the most important way that we're going to grow, is word of mouth, similar to what Lewis said earlier when he asked one of his friends to join and there was cynicism. We got to get over that. And we're only going to be able to do that if we're doing that stuff together. So thank you for being there, and please consider signing up. And I really appreciate you taking the time tonight to have this conversation.